Ding, 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 ding. So, people know I followed Darlie Routier case, and I'm seeking justice for Devin and Damon Routier. They were killed in 1996 by their mother, Darlie Routier, who sits on Texas death row, and she has always said she was innocent. So what I wanted to do was quickly just go over Rich Prater. You can see Rich Prater, RJP Darlie. Look it up. He had Sully up on panel, and towards the end, I've been going through it, and towards the end of it, I just wanted to present and give my opinion on exactly what they're talking about. Darlie Routier case, episode 61 on RJP Darlie, and it'll come up. So let me present this. Please share the screen. I don't care about views. I care about quality views. I'm just here to get my story out, man. That's all. Okay, I'm going to share this. At the end here, just real quick, let me get myself in position. Let me get myself over here so we can see them. And what's in here?
I'll say that the theories that I've shared tonight, I have shared with the Innocence Project. I know Vanessa Potkin was very impressed with it and was very interested on knowing how I come to the conclusions. I can't go into deeper on that aspect because there's a lot of stuff.
She asked you how you came to these conclusions, Rich, because you don't give a lot of detail out. She's like, where the fuck are you getting this from? That's what she meant by how do you come to these conclusions? Do you not read through what people are saying to you, brother?
Being done with that at this time. However, Darlie Lynn was fairly satisfied, and even Danelle Stoll has said that it's probable. So it doesn't mean I'm necessarily right. I'm not trying to boast, but I do have experience in this stuff, and I'm willing to bet I'm close. I'm willing to bet.
I think that this is the closest theory we have when you take into consideration a timeline, the blood evidence, the T-shirt, the sock, how you can get in and out of the neighborhood. I think you did a...
Getting in and out of that neighborhood is not as easy as you think. You got to remember that Gorsuch was up and awake from the time the first officer showed up. Actually, he was out in the yard. You know, he stopped to gaze at the stars, he said. He didn't see anybody go across the way that Rich is always saying that you can get out of there. He didn't see anybody. And he was watching. He was watching as Waddell pulled up. Supporters will tell you that Waddell let the intruder go, right? But they don't realize that just across the street over to the left side of the house, William Gorsuch and his wife were looking right out the window. There were no strange cars in the area, according to them. They watched Waddell pull up and pull his gun on Darren. They identified Darren. They had known Darren. They had spoke to Darren and brought Darren back in the house.
Really good job of putting together evidence in a sequence that shows how hard it would have been for Darlie to have committed this crime.
How hard would it have been for her to commit this crime? From the time Darren went to bed, I believe it's about an hour or so, a little more than an hour, a couple hours. She had all the time in the world. You got to remember Barb Davis, who recanted, who wrote Precious Angels. You got to remember, there is no timeline, she said, before she changed her mind, after she was threatened to be sued by Cirilda on national TV. There is no timeline. Well, Barb Davis, before she passed away, had promised to write a book on Darlie's innocence, and she never did that because you can't. She's not a true crime fiction writer.
Well, you know what's even worse is I only, touched on the evidence. I didn't even go into the deep dive detail.
Oh, I know. I'm like, I could talk about that blood map all day long because you can track Darlie exactly through, and when I mentioned like she didn't walk around the glass, it takes a couple minutes for that wicking to get down through your feet to your feet. So I think.
Oh, come on. You don't know how fast it takes for wicking to get down to your feet. You don't know the blood weight on each person. You don't know how it depends on how fast her heart is beating. You don't know what the timeline is. If her adrenaline is up because let's say she just saw an intruder, her adrenaline would be up and she'd be in fight or flight. That would make her blood pressure go up. When they checked her they did the field test on her and the field shock test on her, there was no sign of that. Her blood pressure was normal.
She did walk and, past that glass, following the intruder.
She did not walk past any glass. Her footprints were clearly in the path of that.
And then she was bleeding from her arm at that point. Or the blood dripped off the knife that the intruder then left in the laundry room. And then people state,
shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Oh, well, that was staged, that the knife was. Why would she go to the trouble of even staging the knife and going into the room and picking?
Because she has to explain why that knife was used. She has to explain it.
It back up and putting it back on the counter. Like, why add all of that?
Let me also explain.
She also wanted to be sure that she told them she picked it up so she can explain why her prints are on it. Which those were Bakelite brand handles. Stock handles were Bakelite brand. Bakelite is specifically made to not withhold oils and salts from your fingers. There would have been no fingerprints. But she was concerned about the fingerprints. She mentioned it several times on the phone to the nurses. She even told one nurse that she knocked the knife out of his hand. That is so she can explain the knife print on the ground where she possibly dropped it.
I know Darlie very well personally. And
you don't know Darlie at all, Rich. You know what Darlie shows you. Personally, what's her favorite food? What's her favorite color? What's her favorite song? How does she act when you take her to dinner? What time does she go to bed?
And I've really loved getting to know her.
I really love getting to know her. I think some marriage counseling would be in order.
I actually consider her a relative to me. And
relative. Little sister. Little sister. Yeah. I know all about that. I know all about them little sisters. Oh, girl, you're like a little sister to me. I know all about that shit.
And her family as well, because they're awesome as well. In 1996, when Darlie Did was 26 years old, she's pretty ballsy.
Listen to this.
However, rather naive ballsy. And I think if she were here to tell us, I hate to speak for her, but I think she would admit that.
Yeah.
When something wasn't going right, Darlie was the first to question it and wanting to know why. When her marriage was having problems, she would investigate and find out what was going on.
If their marriage was having problems, why did they tell the police that their marriage was wonderful? They're withholding the fact that they had a rocky marriage. For what reason? Their first initial statements didn't mention anything about an argument or a separation. That came out after the trial, that she had asking for that. They lied about that to our faces.
I want to go into deep detail on that in this time due to the new investigation.
Well, we're not saying that
there's no new investigation. There's nothing going on.
Could have gotten a divorce that night. Like a lot of marriages, after you have 3 kids and you've been married for, the 8 years that they were, those conversations come up. I mean,
I've never had a conversation with having a separation or divorce with my wife, and I've been there. We've got 2 kids, and we've been together going on 18 years. We've never had that conversation. We're going to ride it to the end, no matter what. There's been times that we fought. There's been times where I said, hey, I might need to get away from you for a night. One time. But separation, divorce, those are not things that we get talked about in a normal marriage.
go through lows and highs in your marriage. It's every family that we investigate, every family has something, you know, that is going on that we have to look past as investigators.
As investigators, my ass. Every family doesn't have a spat about a marriage, and then 2 hours later, their kids come up dead. That's rare.
Because every family, every person has their vices, you know?
Can I tell you something Darlie told me? Darlie told me, and I quote, "Marriage is not for wimps." Think about that.
I can attest to that. I have a great marriage, and the amount of work I put into it is unfathomable.
And it's really true.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not married.
I don't have to work too hard for my marriage. It just comes naturally to us.
Am I a wimp? Maybe. I don't know. What I can tell you is I've already been married 3 times. So maybe I am a wimp. But what I'm saying is she had made that point to me once. Rich, marriage isn't for wimps.
Yeah.
It's not for cowards, she said. And she's exactly correct. It's really not. It's one of the hardest things, in my opinion, anybody would go through. And she was going through a bit of a rough patch in her marriage at the time of the murders. It's true.
They said their marriage was wonderful. Why didn't this rough patch come out after the fact?
Do I believe that it was reconcilable? Of course it could have been.
And
would it have been?
I don't know. Forgiving, loving person, when you do get to know her, she's the type of, let's make this work. Let's figure it out. Like Rich said, she is a strong-willed, independent woman. And, you know, for her to say, Darren, look, something's not right in this marriage.
Independent woman. She lived off of Darren's education. She lived off of Darren's know-how. She lived off of Darren's risks with the business. How independent was she when she was with Darren?
You know?
Right. And I think she had all the right in the world to question it and look into things that were going on. Darren was involved with some bad shit.
All right, look, this is what I'm tired of hearing from Rich. And he says this a lot. I need to go back through his videos and just take clips where he said Darren was into some bad, shady shit. Darren was into this. Darren was out with some bad people. And Darren. If you're a fucking investigator, Rich, pardon me. If you're an investigator, then why are you naming all this other stuff off about Beijing and everybody else? How come you're not naming these people that Darren was associated with? You know, Barry Fife is he doesn't even have a criminal record. Where is this bad? He's into some bad shit, that Darren. Darren ought to sue your ass. He ought to be made aware. You know what? He ought to be made aware of your channel. And I still have Cindy Black's phone number. He should sue your ass. He really should. That's not justice for them to lightweight blame their dad. Darlie said that wasn't him. Period. Darlie said that my husband was not the man that I saw. Period. It's the end of it. You guys take everything she says, you know.
Plain and simple. And she was starting to figure it out. And she started going to people's houses, started stirring the shitstorm.
And she ain't named a damn one of these people's houses to the police that she went to. Why didn't she say that during the investigation? I went to this person's house, and I went over here, and my husband was doing this, and he was doing that. Why didn't she stand for her kids at that point? Why not? If my wife was out making coke deals and shit like that, I wouldn't want it around my kids. My kids come first. She knows that. My kids, if I had to choose between my kids and my wife, my kids would come first. And she knows that. They know that. Those are my creation. You know, my love for her is just my admiration. These kids are my creation. So why didn't she name these people, Rich?
I don't want to go any deeper into that.
You can't go any deeper than that. You can't. You can't do it. I challenge you and Sully to have me up on your panel and let's debate this. Show me. So I'm going to keep going through your videos. It's ridiculous, some of the stuff you come up with.
This time, what I can say is it is a possibility of what caused this horrible tragedy to happen. And she even told me.
She
even told me. So Darlie also told the world that Darren was not the man she saw.
She said, Rich, she said, Rich, when I was 26, I didn't think about dangerous things like this. I just wanted answers as to what was going on with my marriage.
Right.
Which I understand that. I understand.
Well, and I know she's also stated, like, our boys, you know, at 5 and almost 7, like, they are starting to recognize something's not right here in this marriage.
Well, now wait a minute. The boys noticed there was something going on in that marriage. So when Beja came over to the house and said that they were arguing that night, right? That they had been arguing, you guys throw that off as if, well, she's mentally ill, blah, blah, blah. But now you're saying the boys noticed something. If the boys noticed it, don't you think the maid would have noticed it? The people that work with them, that are close to them, they were best friends. Beja noticed it, and she told me that. She noticed that they were fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And you just confirmed what Beja said because you said the boys noticed it. Thank you for that.
Like, they're getting old enough to know they see us fighting. You know what I mean? So I think her being a mother, she's also
remember Darlie and Darren told the world that they had a wonderful marriage. But now they don't all of a sudden. Trying to make it look like Darren did something.
To protect her children.
Let me tell you something somebody wise told me once, Anna. What's not suitable for a child is not suitable for an adult. Think about that a minute.
Well, a brand new Harley Davidson is not suitable for a child, but it is suitable for an adult. I have no idea what he means by that. I don't think he knows what he meant by that. That's a quote from Donald Trump.
But I'm not saying I follow that. What I'm saying is I think it's a good bit of advice. But anyway, with that, I want to go ahead and get this closed. I want to get this, broadcasted so everybody can see it. I hope we've been helpful this evening. I want to thank Anna for being here. Anna has been an incredible asset, not only to this case, but to other cases.
That's not what you told me, Rich, and I have a problem with that. I have a huge problem with that.
I actually, like I said, recently got to work personally with Anna on a case, and she did an incredible job. And she definitely did well over 2/3 of all the work and did it like simultaneously perfect. Like it's undescribable.
Well, I will say that
Rich, this ass kissing is really, really, really disappointing. One thing I don't trust is a two-faced person. Like a dog pissing on your leg while it's licking your hand. That's just between me and Rich because we know what he said about her behind the scenes. He knows it. So he's not going to defend it. And he can say, well, I didn't know you and blah, blah, blah. Okay, you know her now. I'll never have her on my show again. Yep. Whipped. Let me go in the middle of this to see something just real quick if I can get anywhere.
And do certain things with that, and then they'd have slumps. I mean, my financial situation is very similar,
Right. Well, I mean, this to me, this bank statement is not that disturbing to me. I don't see anything.
Now, who has $2,400 in their checking account today?
I've got it.
much less back then.
Yeah. Now, the prosecution would have us believe that Darlie Lynn had come out of the house somewhere. They don't know if it was the window, the sliding glass door, the garage, or what.
Door.
But they said that Darlie Lynn ran out of the house, ran 75 yards down the alley, and put the sock in this location. Then ran all the way back into the house. Mind you, none of Darlie's blood was found out there. As a matter of fact, and this is if we are to...
There's no intruder track out there either. At any rate, I'll keep going through this. Let me stop presenting. I'm going to stop presenting, put my face up there for a moment. Hey, that's part of my face. See, the thing with Rich is he doesn't bring any facts. He brings a lot of speculation. And he's got an obsession, but he's not too far out with it. But you can go through his videos as a non-supporter, and it only takes you 5 minutes or less. A lot of bad stuff out there. He's been doing a lot of bad stuff. Like bad people. Bad people. Well, if the answer is in the names of those people, why is Darlie not speaking up? She didn't know what her husband was doing? She was in there doing that shit with him. Peace and chicken grease, y'all.